Matt Frei on LBC. Listen on your smart speaker now. Just say, play LBC.
Well, Trump continues to make the weather, even in the middle of the summer. Does he ever take any time off? Does he ever go to a little island or, to one of his many golf courses and actually stay there and not post stuff on the internet and just take a breather and give us all a rest? No, he doesn't. He's constantly busy and tweeting and posting and sending missiles and missives and all the rest of it. So let's speak to Simon Marks. Good morning, Simon.
Morning, Matt.
It's great to have you back. I've missed you. I was on holiday and you were away, and here we are reunited, I'm very happy to say.
Missed you too.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, I want to just start off by both of us listening to some vintage Trump stuff when he gave his speech in the middle of the night, our time, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. This is the one that was postponed after the last one in April. Had an armed intruder entering the building, didn't get anywhere near Trump himself, but the whole thing ended in panic and everyone went home and then gave press conferences dressed in their tuxes and their evening gear. And so the whole thing was postponed, and this was supposed to be, the big kiss and makeup dinner between Donald Trump and some of his best or worst enemies in the press corps. And here's a sample of what the president had to say.
I am delighted to be here at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Amazing people, a lot of people that I like. Some I don't like at all. Some of you don't like me. In fact, I read a report, I get 93% negative publicity. 93. So how the hell did I win the election by so much? Think of it, I don't think that's true. I can't believe it's 93. In the 80s maybe, but not 93. I hope that everyone finally got to enjoy their entire very delicious beef tenderloins, very special beef. And I want you all to know that Bobby Kennedy, who's right here, personally ran over the cow in his car. And there's one time in particular when Barack Hussein Obama hosted it. Do you know who that is? And he hit me hard, but actually he hit me with respect. And I have watched this clip thousands of times. They keep playing it because they think that was the evening I decided to run for president. It was not. In fact, I loved the evening. I looked at my wife. I said, can you believe it? All these people, that's all they're doing is talking about me. I love this dinner. It's true.
Well, at least they were laughing. I was actually at that dinner in, I think it was 2011 or 2012, when Obama took the mickey out of Donald Trump. And he did so because Trump started his so-called birther campaign, where he tried to claim that Obama shouldn't be president because he wasn't really born in the United States, which of course was a load of nonsense. But it forced Obama to sort of proffer his birth certificate to prove that Trump was wrong. And it showed Trump, I guess, that if you come up with a brazen lie, even if it is a brazen lie and is exposed as such, you can make political hay out of it. And at that dinner, Obama was very funny to Trump's detriment about Trump. And Trump was sitting at the table next to ours, glowering. He was next to Melania. He was glowering. And when I asked him about it in my interview with Trump, I said, you look really upset. He said, no, I wasn't upset at all because it was all about me, Simon. He said, it was all about me. And I said, yes, sir, it was all about you for about 5 minutes. And that bit he didn't like at all. But it was extraordinary, wasn't it? I mean, his performance last night, Simon.
Well, I mean, just look, my view, as you know, Matt, on this dinner is that it's the most woeful event of the year on the calendar in Washington, D.C. And I've said that for past presidents and the current one. This is not, for me, specifically about Donald Trump. But the idea that last night you had journalists who are supposed to spend their time covering the president, covering members of Congress, covering his cabinet, engaged in an effort partly to yuck it up with him, and then at other moments sitting there stony-faced as he launched ad hominem sexist attacks against some people sitting in the audience, including CNN presenter Caitlin Collins. I mean, it just beggars belief to me that the event continues to take place. I do think we've got that particular dinner that he was talking about where Barack Obama attacked him to blame for Donald Trump's decision to run for the presidency. I mean, there are well-sourced reports that suggest it was at that moment when he decided that he was absolutely going to seek the presidency. He had, of course, expressed presidential ambitions in the past. But I think from what I've seen of last night's event, it was an extremely unfortunate evening for everybody involved. The president attempting to make jokes that fell absolutely flat. Members of the press on the receiving end of attacks by a man who only 2 weeks ago unleashed the Department of Justice on a group of reporters from the New York Times, issuing them with subpoenas because of their reporting about a lack of defensive capability on the new Air Force One that has been gifted to the president by the government of Qatar. Remember that he's continuing to sue our public broadcaster, the BBC, for billions of dollars over that Panorama documentary, even though it's pretty clear that that lawsuit is now falling apart by the week. So I just think a deeply, deeply uncomfortable event. And of course, he sported a Trump 2028 piece of headgear last night. Again, you know, joking, except he's never really joking about the possibility of seeking an unconstitutional third term in office.
I have to say, I mean, I've been to, half a dozen of these dinners, and you're right, they are, it's rubber chicken at a considerable cost with normally a very effective security line to get in. But what was so weird about last night is that, yes, the president on one hand tries to make light of things, and yes, he can be occasionally quite funny. Sometimes we're laughing with him and not just at him. But he is suing these companies for billions of dollars, including, as you mentioned, the BBC. I mean, that is a direct threat, against the free press, suing the Wall Street Journal.
Absolutely.
Which was mentioned last night, by one of the, they got a prize for what they'd written about him and his letter to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, if you're going after these companies for billions of dollars, even if you lose the case, you are effectively undermining the freedom of the press. You're intimidating or trying to intimidate, the Fourth Estate in a way that is just completely unacceptable on totally bogus claims. And of course, in many cases, CBS, for instance, ABC to some extent, it has worked. They've given him the money. They've made payouts.
Absolutely. He's not trying to undermine. He has undermined freedom of the press. He has led some news organizations to bend the knee before him. The Washington Post, a shadow of its former self, now owned by Jeff Bezos, who decided to change the entire editorial line of the Washington Post in favor of issues that Trump favors. CBS News, now taken over by supporters of Donald Trump, the father and son Ellison team, Barry Weiss running CBS News into the ground, its ratings falling like a stone as the entire network genuflects before him. And now, of course, he's got his eyes on CNN. If that Paramount deal goes through and Paramount succeeds in buying Warner Brothers Discovery, there's no question that CNN will also similarly be compromised because there'll be a new management foisted upon it that leads it to genuflect as well. So the Fourth Estate, as we both knew it for so many decades, essentially has largely collapsed as a result of President Donald Trump using his power and influence and his wealthy supporters to force media institutions to pledge fealty to him. I mean, the most uncomfortable moment of the night last night was when he is congratulating Wall Street Journal reporters for writing that article about Jeffrey Epstein, for which he is suing the Wall Street Journal for billions of dollars. Just extraordinary.
I know. Okay, let's move on to some other things. And Venezuelan oil, right? There's a lot of fuss made about that after the abduction of Nicolas Maduro at the beginning of the year, the former president of Venezuela. The money from that oil, where's it all gone?
Well, that's a very good question, and it is amazing that it took largely the reporting of the Financial Times this week to turn this into a story. $13 billion of U.S. revenues from Venezuelan oil that the United States has essentially purloined from Venezuela. $13 billion, nobody knows where it is. It's supposed to be in some kind of transparent bank account somewhere. Initially, they suggested that the Qataris would be looking after the money. They have repeatedly refused to answer questions from lawmakers dating back months now as to where all this cash has been deposited. There's no transparency over whether the United States, as the White House has at times claimed, is simply a custodian of this wealth and some of it will eventually flow back to Venezuela, or is the Trump administration simply trousering it? No answers, only questions and stonewalling it from the administration as they refuse to explain where this cash has gone. Just astonishing.
Final issue then to talk about, we touched on this earlier with another guest, the Saudi-US nuclear deal. I mean, this is quite an astonishing event because there was this deal announced, I don't know, a couple of days ago, I think on Wednesday, and suddenly on Thursday, the deal seems to be kicked into the long grass because Trump then suddenly discovers that it's contingent on the Saudis joining the Abraham Accords, which they won't do, as we discussed earlier, because Israel is not going to allow the creation of a Palestinian state. How could he have got that so wrong?
Well, I think he gave it a rethink. I think it proves to our own new government that no agreement with Donald Trump is ever worth the paper it's written on, even 24 hours after it is signed. I mean, the Saudis went home, MBS went home thinking he'd scored a major coup, that the United States was going to help him build a civil nuclear program and also might even eventually tolerate the possibility of him beginning to develop a military program by engaging in the enrichment of uranium. And 24 hours later, suddenly Donald Trump pulls the rug out from under the deal, maybe because he felt pressure from the Israelis, maybe because he felt pressure from the hawkish elements within the Republican Party on Capitol Hill to insist that the Saudis do something that they're never ever going to do, which is sign the Abraham Accords, at least never going to do it right now. So I think the lesson for Andy Burnham is you can't trust him even when he's applied his signature to a piece of paper.
Simon Marks, on that note, we can trust you to deliver amazing analysis every week at 11:45 my time.